All righty. What's up, everybody? We are live here, literally seconds. You can see in the background still, seconds after LSU upsets Ole Miss here. We'll get into that game in a little bit. So much to get into. Week 7, we circled for a long time on the calendar. We saw the games, we saw the matchups, and boy, did most of them live up to expectations. Let's start with the biggest one of the day. Ohio State, Oregon. Oregon wins a thriller. One of the best games of the season. And there's been plenty of candidates as well here in terms of game of the year. Maybe not there, not better than Alabama, Georgia, but anyway, it does not matter. It was a great game here. Let's look at this first from the Ohio State perspective. I think that's where a lot more reaction is and a lot more questions are going to be. We'll get to Oregon here in a second, but with Ohio State first here, I come out of this game thinking Ohio State is still absolutely, without a doubt, no question about it, a national title contender. When you look at the last play, is it frustrating? Absolutely, because that's on Will Howard. If you're Will, you have to know in that situation, I have so little time, and if the initial play call that is called up and designed, if it's not there, I have to throw it away and make sure at least I give myself a chance to have one more play, one more opportunity to win this game. You can't run around, run out the clock, go down, and have time run out like Dak Prescott did a few years ago in the playoffs and have your season end without you getting one more crack at it. And so when you look at the final play, it is concerning that a veteran, experienced quarterback who's played a lot of football makes a fresh mistake like that. But here's why I do, again, going forward here, still believe in Ohio State a lot. I think you went to this game with questions about two things for Ohio State: their offensive line and their quarterback. And I think for the most part, both played well. Will Howard played a lot better. That is for damn sure. Will Howard showed me a lot here. I was not a big believer that he was an upgrade over Kyle McCord. I was really skeptical about how good he could make this Ohio State offense. And he was outstanding. He was tremendous in this game. He was the only reason why Ohio State was in this game in the first place. Whether it was the accuracy, playmaking was really impressive here down the stretch in the last few drives of the game. Ohio State really had no threat of a run game whatsoever. We'll get to that here in a second. But they needed the arm of Will Howard to make throw after throw after throw to move them down the field, score touchdowns, and get them in position to win the game. And for the most part, again, outside of the final play, he did that. He was tremendous. Like, you look at his numbers here, 28 to 35 for 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. I thought he played arguably the best game of his career, if not right up there. And so coming out of this game, I feel good about now Will Howard going forward. When they play Penn State in a few weeks, that's not one of the questions I have. You know, if they make the Big Ten title game or make it to the College Football Playoff, which they will, I right now don't have questions about Will Howard. And that was not something that I felt good about going into this game. I thought he played tremendous, and one of the big question marks coming out of this game for Ohio State has been answered to Will Howard. I think you do have an upgrade, and you do have a really good play in your team. And so that's why I think if you're an Ohio State fan or just a general fan watching this game, you can't write Ohio State off. You absolutely cannot. Because you look at how this game played out, one of the biggest question marks of the season, I think, has been answered with your quarterback and how Will Howard did handle himself in a big moment on the road in a hostile environment where, again, the run game is not a threat. That's where the offensive line comes in here. That was a concern. You had an injury to Josh Simmons, your left tackle. The depth is very thin on the offensive line. We'll see what his status is going forward. I've not seen any updates so far in terms of timeline. We're recording this about a half hour or so after the game, 45 minutes after the game. So they've not released any sort of timeline for his absence. Did not look great having to leave off a cart. But Ohio State's offensive line depth is a question. Their talent was a question to begin with. Now their depth is as well going forward. When you play Penn State in a few weeks, if you make it to the Big Ten title game, College Football Playoff, that is going to be a question Ohio State has to answer. And the concerning part about Ohio State when it comes to at least their offensive line is the fact that one of the areas I thought they would be able to dominate this game in was on the ground. Quinshon Judkins, Trayvon Henderson, the best running back duo in all of the country. And in this game, look, Henderson had a good game, 10 carries, 87 yards, but Judkins had a fumble, had just 23 yards on the ground, and Ohio State overall as a team ran just 4.3 yards per carry. That's disappointing. I didn't think Oregon's run defense was going to be able to keep up, and it did. You need better production out of your running game if you're the Buckeyes here going forward, and you sure as hell need better production out of your defense. That is, I think, if you're an Ohio State fan coming into this game, that is where your biggest ire should be. It's not Ryan Day's fault, and it's not Will Howard's fault. It's primarily your defense's fault. Get a stop. Ryan Day can't do anybody, neither can Howard. And you're not in this position at the end of the game needing to try to kick a field goal to win if your defense lived up to the hype that they received all off season long. You get Caleb down. You have everybody coming back from your, one of the, I would argue, the best defense, if not one of the best defenses in all the country last year. Everybody, for the most part, that could come back, did come back this year. And what do they do? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. That's what you should be mad at. You should be frustrated, disgusted with Jim Knowles and that defense because they let you down in the biggest game of the season. I mean, Dylan Gabriel was outstanding. 341 yards, but the biggest thing was he wasn't sacked one time. There's only 2 tackles for loss for Ohio State. The run game for Oregon, which I had questions about, it got going the last few weeks, but I didn't think it would be able to hold up to a test that was supposed to be the best defense in the country this year in Ohio State. I don't think they could keep doing what they've been doing against like UCLA in running the football. And you know what? I was wrong. They did. Ran the ball for 5 yards a carry. Jordan James, 115 yards on the ground. Had no problem running. That defense was awful. Absolutely awful. Forced very few conflicts. Got toasted. Denzel Burke, brother. Have yourself a game. Guy was getting burned left and right. Anytime you left receivers, Oregon 101, they would toast you. Couldn't get any sort of pressure on the quarterback. Couldn't stop the run. That defense was a big, fat 0. 10 points allowed in the fourth quarter. Couldn't get a stop when it mattered most. Now, Dylan Gabriel, who's not really a threat to run for what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. What are you doing? Or go-ahead touchdown eventually. That defense, that is where you should be. If you're an Ohio State fan, that is where your ire should be directed. That was awful. But again, coming out of this game, I think big picture here is this. What Ohio State just did was lose to the number 3 team in the country on the road, lost by 1. We had a chance late to win the game. And look, I mean, if Jeremiah Smith doesn't commit the offensive pass interference, I don't know how State wins the game. They're already in field goal range. You probably get another 5-10 yards. You're winning the game. A fresh mistake, bad clock management ruined it for you, but you were that close to winning. Do not panic. Ohio State will be fine. Even if they lose to Penn State in a few weeks, they will be fine. Your quarterback, Will Howard, played well. I think you can win with a bad defense and a good quarterback more than you can win with a bad quarterback and a good defense. Last year showed you that. So at least if you're Ohio State, you could look at it and say, okay, we have a problem area. We're not perfect. But at least the problem area is not quarterback like it was last year. That's where I think you can take solace in if you're a Buckeyes fan going forward of why the season is definitely still in front of you, but why you are absolutely still a national title contender coming out of this loss. No doubt about it. Ohio State, again, that's at least for me the take about the Buckeyes. On the flip side, the Ducks. Look, I'll be honest, I picked Ohio State to win this game. I absolutely swung and missed. In part because Oregon I did not think was playing their best football right now. And so I thought Ohio State was peaking at the right time. I thought they were just playing more. I thought their football, they were playing at a high level. Easy for me to say. Going into this game. But I picked in the preseason Oregon to win the national title. And every reason why I believed in Oregon to win the national title was proven through on Saturday night. Dylan Gabriel is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. He absolutely played like it. Had some massive throws down the field for touchdowns. Had a big run late to win the game. And in clutch time, in the fourth quarter, drove the Ducks down to 2 scores to take the lead late in the game. He's clutch. He makes the big throw. Does not really put the ball in harm's way. The offensive line, which is one of the best in the country, played like it. They got off to a slow start. Some injuries affected that as well. But now you're seeing them get back healthy, build some cohesiveness. They manhandled that defensive line for Ohio State. No problem at all. One of the best receiving cores in all the country. And you also look at, too, what Oregon did in winning this game. They beat the number 2 team in the country without their best defensive player in Jordan Birch, who got hurt in practice. He's been a monster all year long. If you haven't watched Oregon, he is unblockable on their defensive line. That's a massive loss. Massive loss. Got hurt in practice, couldn't play in this game, and yet it didn't matter. Did not matter whatsoever. He was out. You had 2 botched extra points where you missed one, and then that let you kind of go for 2 and chase points again. So you left 2 points on the board in terms of extra point fiascos, we'll call them. You missed a field goal, and you also had one of your better receivers, Trayshawn Holden, get ejected for spitting on a player, which, sidebar, what are you doing? Spitting on a player? Look, I've been spit on before, so I will take it from experience here. You have to be a complete dirtbag to spit on somebody. You have to be. And I don't care what is said in the spirit of competition here. There is nothing that can warrant you, that can be said to warrant you spitting on somebody on the field. That's inexcusable. In that moment, in the first half, that's huge. So Oregon won this game without their best defensive player, one of their better wide receivers, and they left 5 points on the board in special teams and still found a way to win this game. They are good, and the scary part for the rest of the country is there's still a higher ceiling. They did not play their best game. There's still so much more room to grow for the Ducks. To me, they were my pick to win the national title in the preseason, and right now, after this game, they are absolutely my favorite to win the national title. They should be the number 1 team in the country, no doubt about it. They should jump Texas here. They should be sitting on the pole, at the polls, at the top here going forward. But when you look at Oregon's defense, getting timely-ish stops, but you look at them offensively, how clutch they're able to play, getting their game up when it mattered most. Oregon should absolutely be the favorite to win the national title moving forward. They checked every box I think you need to check here in the preseason and then now. Great win for Dan Lanning. Great win for the Ducks. That was awesome. That was a game that had a lot of hype, just like Georgia, Alabama did a few weeks ago. And boy, did it live up to it. That was awesome. But again, we saw also a lot more stuff. So let's get into it here as well. Let's go to something that happened. Actually, let's just go to something that just happened here. You have it on my screen in the background. Well, we used to have it on the screen. Ole Miss lost in overtime to LSU. Brian Kelly comes back to score a touchdown late, win in overtime. They take down the Rebels. I will start with this. I am an idiot. Shame on me. I should have seen this coming. I believed in Ole Miss this year when I had no reason to. Because what we saw on Saturday night in Death Valley, and even a few weeks ago against Kentucky, this is who Lane Kiffin is. This guy can't win the big game. And yet again, in a big moment when you need to go on the road and just grind out a victory, he can't do it. Coming into this game, Lane Kiffin, when he's faced a team that's won 9 games in the regular season or more, his record is 4-21. He can't beat good teams. LSU is going to win 9 games this year. This would have been a really impressive win for Ole Miss. I picked them to win like an idiot. Everything told me not to. I've not been a big believer, to be honest with you, in Kiffin winning these games in the past. But I really believed in this year the thought that Ole Miss was different, that their offensive line was tougher, that their defensive line was better, which it actually has been. That in the clutch moments, the offense would be humming, Jackson Dart would be able to make some throws, and that this team would actually get over the hump, make the college football playoff, and live up to the talent on the roster, which is high. They have talent, but that's the problem. They don't play up to their potential. And you saw it here yet again in Death Valley. LSU's defense stinks. It's better than it has been in previous weeks, but it stinks. And Ole Miss's high-powered offense should have dropped 40 on them easily. And yet, what are we doing here late? 26 points. That's all you get. You lose in overtime. Your offense is in neutral for most of the game. You leave the door open for LSU, and they. This is classic Lane Kiffin written all over it. Good start, can't finish. Here we are yet again. They're done. Ole Miss's season is over. And that's why if you're Florida, we'll get to Billy Napier here in a little bit, but if you're Florida, You can't hire Lane Kiffin. I know that's everybody's wish list here. Number one for the Florida Gators' next head coach, Lane Kiffin. Why? Why? He's cool. I like him. I think he's a great personality. He's easily likable. But like, if you want to win championships, right? That's where Florida standard is. Let's get back to the top where Urban Meyer had him, at least on the field. Lane's not your guy. Lane's not your guy because he's never done that. He's never produced at that level. He's never won big games and done it consistently. So I don't get this infatuation with Lane Kiffin being like this next hotshot head coach. I think he's a great fit at Ole Miss. I think he's fun there. But like, if you're a Florida where you have championship aspirations, Ole Miss does not have championship aspirations. Let's be real here. Florida does. You can't hire Lane Kiffin and then expect to win a championship. He just showed you why in Death Valley on Saturday night, why he is not your guy. Ole Miss does it again. They do it again. And that's why, if you look at the comments here, if you want to join in, by the way, please do. Write in the comment section. Love to hear your thoughts. JC Squared writes in, I will never trust Ryan Day and Lane Kiffin ever. When it comes to Ryan Day, I still trust him. I think he's a really good coach. I know they lost today, but they lost by 1 point on the road to the number 3 team in the country, in part because a freshman made a freshman mistake in Jeremiah Smith pushing off when you got in field goal range. When Will Howard made the throws he had to get yourself in field goal range to win the game. I still trust Ryan Day. I think he did a great job in getting Howard ready to play in this game. I trust him. Liffen. That could work too. Lane Kiffin, I do not. And also, really fast, JC Squared writes again, Oregon over Texas. Come on now. What do you mean, come on now? Oregon is absolutely the number 1 team in the country. This is not even a discussion. They just beat the number 3 team in the country. Oh, I'm sorry, the number 2 team in the country. They're 3. You're telling me a team that was number 3, who just beat number 2 in all the country, should not then move from 3 to 1? You're going to keep Texas up there because they beat Oklahoma and their crappy offense? No. Texas can win at number 1 back next week when they play Georgia. But if this is truly a week-to-week ranking, which it should be, how can you seriously tell me Oregon, who has, if we're looking at it right now, does Oregon have the best win in college football? I would say so, right? They have the best win in college football. Why are they not rewarded with being number 1? They have a better win than Texas does. Texas's best win right now is what, Michigan? Is it Oklahoma last night or earlier on Saturday? What are we doing? Oregon, you cannot tell me Oregon being the number 2 team in the country should only move up 1 spot in the rankings. That's ridiculous. They are moving up to number 1. Texas slides down to 2. And when Texas plays Georgia next week, they have a chance to go back up to number 1. That's how it works. I don't see what's so difficult about that. You beat number 2 when you're number 3. Guess what? You're going to number 1. That is that. But don't worry, if you're a Lane Kiffin fan, you will never have to worry about that problem because you are coming nowhere close here to getting anywhere near the top 3 in college football. That's for sure. Speaking of a team that was formerly number 1 here, and now is a lot of concern. Alabama is in danger of missing the college football playoff. They really are. Because now the problems that have lasted over the last 10 quarters do not seem to go away. Like, they are real problems. We talked about it last week. Alabama's defense stinks. They are unreliable. They are not a good unit. You can't rely on them to get a big stop. They got very lucky to win this game against South Carolina, but it was because of their defense. Their defense is a problem, and going against Tennessee next week, we'll get to them here in a little bit, but Tennessee's offense stinks. I still don't feel good about the Crimson Tide's defense slowing down the Vols' offense next week. This unit is a problem. It was a problem in the second half against Georgia. It was a problem all game against Vanderbilt. And it was a problem for 3 quarters against South Carolina. It is not a good unit. They are not clutch they need to be. That is problematic. But what also is problematic is the fact that we are now not only seeing the defense be an issue, we're seeing coaching being an issue. I love Kalen DeBoer, and I have a lot of respect for him. With that said, he had the worst game of his coaching career on Saturday. He should have lost the game. Alabama had no business winning that game. Because you look back, it's very simple. 2-minute warning. South Carolina had 0 timeouts. It was 3rd down for Alabama. 1 first down wins the game. That's it. Get the first down, go down. South Carolina has no timeouts. You take 3 knees, and you are walking away with a close victory, but hey, to win. Okay. On 3rd down, you have Jalen Miller drop back for a really nice pass to Jeremy Bernard, about the 10-yard line or so, maybe the 8. Bernard catches it. Does not go down. Does not go down for whatever reason, runs into the end zone, and you take a 1-point lead and make it an 8-point lead. That is on coaching because you have to make sure your players are 100% aware of the situation. Time and score. Time and score. And DeBoer did not hammer that home because clearly Bernard had no idea what the hell he was doing because he caught the ball, ran to the end zone. No one told him to get down. That should have been I really hate that I'm about to do this, but it's true. That would not have happened under Nick Saban. Catching the ball, going to the end zone, when you could have had a chance to go down before the end zone and take 3 knees to win the game, that would not have happened under Nick Saban. And it has happened under Kalen DeBoer. That's a problem. That is a problem right then and there because it should have burned him, and it almost did. South Carolina went right down the field, scored a touchdown, right? Went for 2, had an open receiver, had a guy. Lenore Sellers stinks. That's part of it. Better throw, we have a tie game. But then to not recover the onside kick, to allow even more life to South Carolina is inexcusable. And part of it is right now, I think, a lack of focus. Nick Saban said it this week. When he was watching the Vanderbilt game, he saw a lot of complacency. And you know what? You know what I saw a lot of today? Complacency. That is problematic because the same issues we saw pop up in the last half against Georgia, in the entire game against Vanderbilt, and the entire game against South Carolina, sloppy play, complacency, turnovers, 2 more today, 2 more last week. Like, this is just a lack of attention, lack of respect for the opponent, or I wonder now, is it a lack of respect for the coach? Because there is a thought out there that, Kalen DeBoer won here and here and here, but this is now the big time. He doesn't know what it's like to coach and win in the big time. He does. But I wonder if that sentiment down in Tuscaloosa rings true, where I wonder if the players, because he's not like Saban, he's not going to cheer you out 24/7. He actually smiles. I wonder if the different, we'll call it more laid back philosophy and coaching style of DeBoer is not translating to a lot of guys that committed and played for Nick Saban who are used to a different style of coaching. Because we are seeing the same issues now pop up over weeks. That is partly, I don't think the coaches are stupid. Again, Kalen DeBoer is one of the best coaches in college football. He knows what he's doing. These issues are not because of ignorance. I wonder if the issues are because these players are just not listening. Because they don't respect him. I don't know. That's just me watching how the players play and watching how these same issues pop up against inferior teams time and time again. Is the message not getting home? And will it ever get home with these guys? I don't know. And that's a concern because now with how they played against Vanderbilt and losing, how they played against South Carolina and somehow got a win, which they had no business winning that game whatsoever. Alabama, I can't sit here and tell you right now, halfway through the year, that they're a playoff team. How can I do that? They could lose to anybody. They could lose to anybody on their schedule. They could lose to Auburn. They could lose to Tennessee next week. They could lose on the road at Oklahoma. They still have some tough games left. And if you're sitting there at 9-3, if you're Alabama, you're not in. I don't know what your expectations are in a new 12-team playoff. If you are 9-3 Alabama, you are out of the playoff. And with now a loss and another near loss, I'm concerned. I am concerned. I still think when push comes to shove, Alabama will be in. I think they'll lose one more game. Again, they're at Tennessee next week. They're at LSU in about a month or so from now. So they still have 2 really tough road games left. I think they'll drop one of them. My bet would be LSU. I just don't really trust Tennessee's offense right now. We'll get to that here in a second. But if you're Alabama, if you're Kalen DeBoer right now, you have to make some real changes ASAP because clearly there's some sort of disconnect. There's a disconnect between you and the players and the coaching staff, players and their performance from practice to the game. There is a disconnect somewhere, and it has to get changed ASAP because right now Alabama is the most vulnerable it's been since 2007, Saban's first year. They have never been this vulnerable in almost 20 years, and they absolutely are right now with what we've seen the last few weeks. It is a problem. I'm officially worried about the Crimson Tide now going forward here. Speaking of concern, I full disclosure, Penn State alum, in case you didn't know, wearing my Penn State shirt today. Wow, that was a lot closer than it should have been. Absolutely a lot closer than it should have been. They squeak out, and frankly, they got lucky. Not gonna sugarcoat it. They got lucky in beating USC 33-30 in overtime here. And when you come out of this game for Penn State, I come out more concerned than I do happy. I really do, because there are two main issues with this team that I don't think if they're not fixed by 3 weeks from now, they're not beating Ohio State. They're not. And that's, to me, that's concerning. The two areas right now that are problematic that did not bite them today, that should have, but that will absolutely bite them against Ohio State in a few weeks. Number one, trench play. They got bullied. In a matchup, they should have been the bullies. They were bullied in a game in which they went in thinking they were the bullies. That is a problem. Offensive line and defensive line, I thought Penn State had a massive advantage. Their defensive line is really good. They're leading getting after the quarterback. They've been one of the best rush defenses in the country as well. They've been great. But yet in this game, they struggled getting after Miller Moss. They struggled tackling Woody Marks, who had a tremendous game. USC ran as a team for 8.3 yards per carry. They almost had 200 yards on the ground. So Penn State was getting blown off the ball by USC's offensive line, had trouble tackling as well. That's scary. You look at all the talent Ohio State has here on their squad in a few weeks, and even any team you play in the playoff going to be filled with offensive talent. Penn State couldn't tackle them. And then offensively, Penn State couldn't run the football. They have one of, not the, but one of the best running back combos in the nation in Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. And both of them did nothing. Nothing. And it wasn't their fault. The offensive line opened up no holes. There was no push up front. There was no threats of the run because the Penn State offensive line got pushed back for most of the game against USC. That is concerning. Even though Ohio State's defense against Oregon, I think, got exposed, I don't know if Penn State's offensive line is good enough to continue to expose them again in a few weeks. That is a real concern going in when you look at the trenches. I thought Penn State had a big advantage, and it flipped on its head. They did not. They did not have the defensive trench advantage or the offensive trench advantage. It was a trench warfare favoring USC. That is concern number one. Concern number two is these slow freaking starts the Nittany Lions have gotten off to every single game this season. They're a second-half team. I've come to grips with it. I accept it. But what I can't accept or be okay with is the fact that you are getting yourself in these holes that it's going to be eventually too hard to dig out of. Up to this point, they've played nobody. Right? Their schedule's been very soft. They played a ranked Illinois team that does not have anywhere near the offensive firepower that USC does or Ohio State does. So they're able to ward off a slow start here. And again, keep a lot of these games close. Central Michigan lit them up for a ton of points in the first half. Able to come back in the second half a few weeks ago. But you were down 14 at halftime. You were down 2 scores for most of that first half. If you're down 2 scores against Ohio State or a playoff team, you're getting blown out. Blown out. And so that is concerning to where you can't afford to put yourself behind the 8 ball, yet that is what Penn State routinely does. And the concerning part is they know it. They're fully aware. James Franklin talks about it every single week. We got to get off to better starts. We got to, come out faster. It's offensively and defensively, they are sluggish. Sluggish. And so they're clearly aware of it, but if you're not fixing the problem that you're aware of, at what point do you say it's unfixable? I don't know. I really don't know what it's going to take because this was their first challenge, and even though USC was unranked, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe Penn State has no respect for any opponent they play until it's Ohio State. And what I would say to that is, well, look at Alabama last week. That is problematic. Get your mindset right, which is not coaching. But damn, if you can't come out any better, sharper, you're going to find yourself in a hole that you can't dig out of. They have locked up in the second half. Every game they played, both offensively and defensively. The defense has been a lot better in the second half, including on Saturday against USC. Did a great job in overtime, keeping USC from moving the ball and forcing a long field goal that was missed. They did a great job of limiting, outside of really one drive, limiting USC's offense. They did a great job in the 2 turnovers Penn State had of only holding USC to field goals. But if you're Penn State, those 2 concerns I think are enough to really warrant concern when you face Ohio State and when you face a college football playoff. That is concerning. With that said, it wasn't all bad. It was not all bad. 3 quick, big-time positives here I want to run by you. Number 1, Tyler Warren. I mean, if you never heard of him before, now you know. This was a game for the age. This was one of the best individual Penn State performances I have ever seen in my life. This is up there with Saquon Barkley's Rose Bowl game against USC. And I'm sure if you've seen the highlights, if not, look him up. He was insane. Insane in that game. But in terms of individual performance, this was one of the best individual performances I've ever seen from a Penn State player, and I would say even from just a college football player in general. Look at what he did in this game. 17 catches. That's not a typo. 17 catches. Tied for the most ever in college football history by a tight end. Those 17 catches went for 224 yards. He had 1 touchdown, which was an insane touchdown, one-handed over a defender, where he survived the ground. It was incredible. Also on that play, he was not lined up on the line as a tight end, not split out wide, not in the backfield. He snapped the football. Snapped the football. That's right. He caught passes. He blocked. He snapped the football. He threw a pass in this game. One pass completed for 9 yards. Also had a rush as well for a first down. He literally did everything. He did everything you could possibly do in a game from the offensive perspective. He was outstanding. That's positive number 1. Positive number 2, the reason why he was able to have all that success, the man upstairs, not Jesus Christ. Andy Kotelnicki, Penn State's offensive coordinator. I told you just before, in case you missed it. And if you haven't seen it, check out my Twitter, Ryan_Hickey3. I had the video there. Look at the Tyler Warren touchdown play where he snapped the football. That is creativity that Kotelnicki has brought to the Nittany Lions this year that I've not seen in a while, that I don't think anybody has seen in college football. I've never seen a play in which the guy snapping the ball is then going out for a pass, and it's totally illegal because if you watched it, he was the end man on the line of scrimmage. There was no one to his left. The 2 guys were split out, were off the line of scrimmage. So Tyler Warren not only was a center, but he was legally able to catch a pass because he was essentially lined up on the end of the line of scrimmage, which is like a tight end. But that's creative genius I would never think of. Never think of. You know what? Forget about putting guys in motion, maybe that's to the Wildcat. Let's have our tight end snap the ball, then have him streak right down the field almost 50 yards. We're going to throw the ball to him. Who thinks of that? Who thinks of that? It's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. But him, his creativity is, number 1, never ending. I see a new thing every single week. But he has brought life to this Penn State offense where they are explosive as hell. And they can compete with and put points up against any defense in the country. That's how special Penn State's offensive coordinator, Andy Kotelnicki, is. He's that good. But the third promising game for Penn State, this is maybe the biggest one, Drew Aller. Drew Aller threw 3 picks in this game. With that said, I thought this was the best game of his Penn State career. Easily the best game of his career. Because in this game, he, for the first time, took control of this offense, took control of this team. When USC scored a touchdown and go up by 7 here with about 6 minutes or so, he took them down the field, converted 2 4th and longs, and willed Penn State to eventually tie the game and get this game to overtime. He was yelling at everybody. He was in guys' faces. He was vocal and he took ownership. You could see in that moment right there, oh, this is his team. He's taking control right now. That is so encouraging to see from a guy that last year felt like he was very timid. Did not want to step on anybody's toes, did not want to get in the way, did not want to yell at everybody. He was very passive and he was just running the offense as it was supposed to run. Now it's his offense. We're running my offense. He took ownership and in the biggest drive of Penn State season. Again, facing down the barrel here of 2 4th and longs. And in a game in which the offense has been clunky, he's again thrown 3 picks, which is more than he's had in his entire career. Although one was on a Hail Mary, but still was going to include it for dramatic effect on the last play of regulation. But he did not shy away from previous mistakes. He made the big throws. He stood in there, took some big hits, was accurate, decisive. And while he threw and completed 17 passes to Tyler Warren, he made some of the biggest plays to other guys as well. He trusted a guy like Julian Fleming, who dropped a few passes early in the game. He went back to him. Like, that to me is a sign of really good leadership here. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds with that. I know maybe I kind of went a deeper rabbit hole than you were imagining. But if you're Penn State, biggest thing is this. I love the growth of Soft Maller. Tyler Warren, Heisman talk. Why are we not talking about him in the Heisman? This was a game right here with what he did. 70 catches, over 200 yards, caught a touchdown, threw a pass. He is, I think, now a Heisman contender here going forward with a game like this. This was absolutely tremendous. He's been nails all season long for the Nittany Lions as well. And Andy Kotelnicki, there is excitement. There is encouraging signs about this offense. But the trenches, offensive line, defensive line have to do better, and they have to get off to faster starts. Those are absolutely 2 big things here for Penn State that is concerning, that right now don't have me feel good when they face Ohio State or a better team here in a few weeks. Red River, I think, to me, was very predictable. Very, very predictable. You had Texas win 34-3 in this game. Because Texas is one of the best teams in the country. To me, it's them and Oregon. Them and Oregon right now, but if you want to are the 2 best teams in the country, I put and then everyone else I think is playing after that. But if you want to kind of look at a tier right now, halfway through the season, best teams in the country, I think right now, Oregon, Texas, and everybody else is behind them fighting for 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc. Texas is good. And once it was encouraging to see once Quinn Ewers came back, knocked some rust off, early turnover, really settled in, got that first touchdown. You saw him take off, this offense take off. And they did. This was crazy to say, but I view this game as a warm-up game for next week against Georgia. In part because Oklahoma's defense is a really good test, but their offense is nowhere good enough to where, like, you aren't actually going to get burned if you made mistakes. You were not going to – they were never in jeopardy of losing this game because Oklahoma's offense right now is just not good. They're one of the worst in the SEC, worst in the country. So it's a great test because you can see if you're Steve Sarkisian now, getting ready for Georgia next week, what works, what doesn't work. What can I do? What can I do? What can I trust my guys to get away with? What can I? This was just, I think, a great testing ground. I know it's a big rivalry game, and there's been plenty of unexpected results before. Oklahoma's offense was in no position to make this game competitive. That's why the 34-3 score is not surprising whatsoever. Not at all. But on the other side, if you're Oklahoma, what's the point of still playing Michael Hawkins Jr.? Why aren't you going back to Jackson Arnold? I think you got to see what you have now in the former 5-star quarterback. You benched him. He's set. You've seen Hawkins start against Auburn. Not very good. Probably should have lost that game if not for Auburn giving it to you. But then you look at this game, he stunk. Hawkins stunk. The offense, like, you put up 3 points. You barely moved the football. Go back to Arnold. Go back and just see. This year may be lost. And honestly, both may not be the answer. But if I'm Brent Venables here, I have to see Arnold again. I can't put him on the bench after that Tennessee game and say, you're done for the year. I have not seen anything from Michael Hawkins so far in his 2+ games as quarterback to say he deserves more playing time. I want to see more of what he's got. Hasn't shown it. Hasn't proven it. I know Texas is a great, well-rounded team. And again, I think them and Oregon right now are in a class to themselves. Everybody else is fighting for that next tier. But even against Auburn, he didn't show you much. He didn't really show you any signs of life. So let's go back to Arnold, see what he's got. And if he stinks, you go back to Hawkins, okay, fine. Then after the season's over, neither of those quarterbacks are going to be in your roster next year, or at least be your starter. You have to try to start over and find someone else new. But at least I would go back at this point to Jackson Arnold because I just don't know what the point is of this, anymore of still seeing Hawkins start for the Sooners. Let's go to a win here for Tennessee. But boy, oh boy, you see the question there below. Is Tennessee a playoff team? I don't know. That answer is no. That answer is no, they are not. I did not pick Tennessee to be a playoff team before the year. The schedule was too hard, and I was not sold on how good Nico Iamaleava could be right away in year number one. And so far, we're seeing that. This offense in the last 2 weeks has not been good whatsoever. They are not giving you a reason to believe. You go back to even that game against Oklahoma, okay, fine. Oklahoma's defense is great. So I'm not going to get on Nico. I'm not going to get on Josh Heupel too much because that's a defense that is tenacious, forces turnovers, and they do a great job. But look at Arkansas last week. You can't put up points against Arkansas. And now in a game against Florida, which their defense has not been good. They've gotten lit up by Miami. They've gotten lit up by A&M. At home, you need to go to overtime and you only score 17 points in regulation? This offense is problematic. This offense right now is concerning because they're not doing anything well. Nico's not throwing the ball well. They're not running the ball efficiently. They are not right now playing good football. And they have, again, Alabama coming to town. You play Georgia still. Like, they got a schedule where they're not out of the woods whatsoever. Next week's going to be an elimination game. Alabama, Tennessee. I can't wait for that one. It's going to be great. But how can I sit here, even with the problems Alabama has, how can I sit here and truly believe in Tennessee when their offense right now has been anemic? They give the ball away, which is a concern as well. So even the few times they've had good drives, they just give the ball away at the end. Their offense is not good, and I don't see it turning around anytime soon here. I thought people were going too nuts early in the year for Tennessee when they smoked NC State, when they smoked Chattanooga. Like, let's pump the brakes and see how they do against now real SEC competition, and now you're getting your answer. For 3 games, they have not been good. Not been good whatsoever. This is the problem. Tennessee is not a playoff team. Not this year with how this offense is going. On the other side of this game, though, if you're Florida, how you allowed Billy Napier to even coach overtime, let alone get on the plane home, is ridiculous. He should have been fired the second he said extra points. When you score a touchdown with less than a minute to go on the road at the number 18 country with your job on the line, that is not the time to get conservative. That is not the time to say, let's keep the game going. Let's play for more time. Let's kick the extra point. What are you doing? DJ Lagway did not look good in this game. He did not. He made one great throw at the end, stepped on the pocket, found a receiver down the field. Realize that and say, you know what? This is my opportunity. One play from the 3-yard line to beat the number 8 team in the country. I got to take that chance. And for him to be uncertain, run the offense out there, have to call a timeout because you're about to get a delay game because you got the offense out there late, and then kick the extra point, you're fired. You are fired. Done. That is not the time to be passive. That is not, you have to realize how this game is playing out. The longer it goes, the worse it is for you. If you went for 2 and didn't get it, I will give you props and kudos. Right decision, just didn't work out. Going for the extra point was never the right decision, never. And you saw right there, overtime was a disaster. Tennessee marches right down the field. They score the game-winning touchdown. Game over. You never had a chance. Like, if you're going to get fired, you're getting fired, right? He is getting fired. But if you're going to get fired At least go down swinging. Try. What are we doing? Playing it conservative. Oh, let's go for the extra point. Let's just play for overtime. Maybe we'll get go for it. Come on. That was ridiculous. Florida right there should have walked down to the field, fired him on the spot, sent him home, and have someone else coach overtime. You can't, under any circumstance, kick the extra point there with your offense playing so poorly for 59 minutes and 30 seconds. You blow a 10-0 lead, and you have the number 8 team in the country on the ropes. You right there have to go for the throat, go for the dagger against a great defense in Tennessee. 1 play, 3 yards. That's it. Drop your best play and maybe save your job. Maybe, depending on how the rest of the year goes. Instead, coward backs down, and you see the result. That was egregious. And that was actually frustrating. That was really, really frustrating here. All righty. We have gotten late. 46 minutes. Let me read one more comment before we do get here. This is what I'm talking about here. And this is also, honestly, this is why I love college football. I do. The overreaction, the passion is what I live for. It makes the sport, to me, the best. And I think what we saw in week 7 here was just an example of why college football is the best sport on this planet. JC Squared writes in, if Kalen DeBoer loses 2 more games, he might be out before it ever begins. Do we forget what Nick Saban did in year number 1? I get it. The situation he inherited was way worse than the one DeBoer inherited. I get it. The reality is, though, you need to give DeBoer time. The guy went to I'm going to curse. Who cares? The guy went to a fucking national championship last year, all right? You're not firing him if he goes 9-3 in year number 1. You are not. He is a great coach. The guy has won everywhere he has been. It's not even, I really shouldn't even entertain because it's the possibility of that happening is literally zero. Zero. You're not firing him after year 1 and when he goes 9-3. There's no chance it happening. But I promise you, Kalen DeBoer is a great coach and he will have a lot of success. He will win a national championship, if not multiple, at Alabama. I have no doubt about it. Right now, though, this is, I think, partly what we see when a new coach takes over. You still have a lot of the old regime there. And usually, remember, this is actually a unique situation here. Let's break this down a little bit more. Usually when a coach comes in, he comes in because the old one got fired, right? Got fired. Sucked, not good, out with the old, in with the new, right? So everything that new coach says, well, he was hired and he's got to be better than the old coach. Right? So of course you're going to listen to him. This is, I think, part of the reason why you could argue the Alabama job was not as attractive as people thought it would be. You have the greatest coach of all time in college football retire. He wasn't fired. He wasn't run out of town. And he definitely, did not lose his fastball. Alabama made it to the college football playoff last year. So Nick Saban was still at the top of his game when he stepped away. And even though a few players left in the transfer portal, DeBoer brought a few of his own guys in here, you still have a majority of that roster made up of Saban guys. Guys he recruited, guys he developed, right? And I think right now you're seeing maybe it's trust, maybe it's buy-in, maybe just trying to get used to a different style of coaching and it takes longer to buy in, whatever it may be. You are seeing kind of 2 waters converging right now that are not meshing. The Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean are coming together right now. They're not mixing. They're running, concur with each other. It's going to take time, I think, to have a lot of those guys buy in. And maybe for DeBoer, it's going to take 2-3 years to when he has most of his players he recruits on his staff, or on his team, I should say, before the message truly gets across. But I think partly what we're seeing with Alabama this year is maybe some players not, I'll say, adjusting well to the new coaching staff and the new philosophy, because the old one that they had, they all knew was pretty damn good and one of the best. So I'm not putting this on, I'm not, You're not firing DeBoer. It's not even a question, not even a thought. But that's what I think is happening here with Alabama and why you're seeing sloppiness, complacency, un-Alabama-like faults pop up now for the last 2.5 games. And that's not fireable. That's just, I think, growing pains. That's just reality right now, the situation. It's on the players and it's on the coaching staff as well to have the players buy into their message. And it's taking some time. This is a really interesting time here for Alabama. Again, going on the road at Tennessee next week here. They are in a really interesting spot when it comes to the buy-in. But DeBoer will be fine. He's not getting fired. He's still a great, great coach. He'll turn it around very soon. Give him some grace, JC, please. Okay, he's not getting fired after three losses. He's not getting fired after 3 years. Let's calm down. All will be fine. Some small speed bumps that have to get fixed, that are not easily fixable right now, that are concerning. They are concerning. But I trust DeBoer with his track record and what he's done. I trust him to fix those mistakes here coming up shortly. So appreciate you watching. Here late. It's late on a Saturday night. If you're watching early Sunday mornings, well, appreciate you tuning on in. That's my biggest reactions for week 7. It was a great week of college football. By the way, look ahead really fast. We got a great weekend next weekend. Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas. Lock in. College football's here, and it is really now turning up to being one of just a tremendous season. So appreciate you watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here because we'll do these videos every single. I'm gonna try to do them every Saturday night now. Moving forward, I think just instant reaction works better than Sunday morning. So try to do these a lot Saturday night. So make sure you subscribe so you get an alert and can find them every single week. Also, check me out on social media, Ryan_Hickey, the number 3, for a lot of instant reaction. Obviously, tweets about college football, about the NFL, about the New York Mets, LGO. World Series, here we come. They beat the Dodgers. Let's go anyway. I divert. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate you tuning in here. Make sure to subscribe. Talk to you next week right here on the channel.